So last podcast, we did talk about the doc situation a little bit, but we ended up cutting it because we recorded on Monday, and by the time Wednesday rolled around, all of the information we talked about was basically moot at this point.
Yeah.
It's a sad situation. Obviously, anything involving this kind of thing. Basically, what happened? If you're not caught up, the doc was banned from Twitch back in 2020. According to some basically leaks that have now been widely corroborated by other employees and people around and familiar with the Twitch scene, that he was caught sexting minors. And back on Monday of last week, this was kind of like new information, and people were defending the doc and saying, hey, let's not judge him until all the information is in. And it was pretty hard to pick a side because obviously it's a very real situation. And what we talked about a lot last week was basically making sure that everybody has all the info before you render the verdict on somebody, which is very important.
The internet can jump to conclusions, and I was a little worried that to ruin someone's reputation based off of a rumor isn't really fair, and that's kind of gross. But it just so happens that he was really gross, and it was all true, and he admitted to it, and he's not great.
Yeah,
to put it mildly.
The consequences of it have been rolling out for days after his admission. So basically, he got word from his gaming studio that they dug into the situation of these leaks and the scandal surrounding his purportedly what happened, and they decided his game studio, what was it, like night something, I forgot, Midnight Club,
midnight something, yeah, I don't know,
Midnight Society, I think.
That sounds right.
They dug into it and decided that they were basically going to shut down and or distance themselves from the doc because of what they found, which in itself is, if they figured out enough to decide to close down an entire game studio, which I think, was employing a lot of people, then obviously they found enough to render a conclusion from that. He seemed to be reacting to that on stream, getting that information or something via text, and then towards the end of his stream said he was just going to take a break for a while. More information started leaking. He made a statement online basically confirming that he was DMing minors back in like 2017 via the Twitch Whisper chat program, whatever it was called. He kind of denied that there was any intentions behind it, but it was all very vaguely worded, and because he didn't actually post any sort of actual chat log from the DMs or anything like that, people assumed the worst, and I probably rightly so. It's like if
it came out to be true, so
yeah. Well, and it's like, even I felt like, I was like, man, maybe he was just trying to be like there's no way. It's really hard to look at it in any sort of view where it's a positive context. So he basically admitted to it, seemed to think that somehow he was going to come back. He made I think a statement about coming back at some point after taking a break.
That's going to be hard.
Not going to happen, because YouTube has also demonetized his entire channel.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So not only was he banned from Twitch, but now YouTube has demonetized him. And apparently, and this is where
Kick's the story gets... Here like...
I know. Kick is like, we'll take anybody, bro. I'm sure Kick is better than that. I don't think Kick would take him. But
we'll see.
I don't know, man. But what I've been reading is that Doc had a hard time getting monetized on YouTube because YouTube was wondering why Doc had been banned from Twitch. They dug into it and apparently got the story like back in 2020-ish time.
Really?
And we're not like letting him fully monetize or run ads or something on YouTube. So I guess he was making his money via other ad contracts or something.
Interesting.
Sponsorships or
so
whatever.
he really took a big hit.
Yeah. I believe anyway. Like I haven't corroborated all of this info because obviously YouTube would have to officially announce that, but that's what I'm hearing now. And so I guess this story's been going around quite a while within the back channels of the interwebs and whatnot. And it's kind of, I don't know, creepy and fortunate that this information has been more or less known for so long. And just now we're finding out about it, when people were allowed to fanboy Doc for 4 years, or fangirl Doc for 4 years, knowing that there was this past behavior that these companies knew about that we're not giving out to the public, whether that was due to legal stuff, because obviously there was some sort of lawsuit between Doc and Twitch, or that there just wasn't enough evidence to go around, or the people who actually had the chat log evidence weren't distributing it due to the legal ramifications. So all the actual evidence was more or less word of mouth. So making an official company statement based on word of mouth evidence is a dangerous thing to do. I don't know. The whole situation's sticky. It's gray. It's disappointing. Really disappointing for just the gaming and streaming scene, because unfortunately there have been quite a lot of bad actors within the game and streaming scene. And I mean, it's not really a mystery as to why that is. There's no credentials to become a streamer. You don't have to pass some sort of test. You just basically hit a view mark and you're on there. And so you get a lot of kind of wild characters who make it to the top. And yeah, unfortunately, Doc was one of them, and yeah, it's not a good look for gaming and streaming. But it's good that the information's out there now, and now the community can move forward.
Yeah, and I don't know how he's going to come back from this, and
he may never coming back.
He may never come back from this, right? Like the thing is I like to. Should someone's past mistake affect them for their entire life? It's like, I'd like to think that no, but I don't think that people necessarily have to forgive him for what he did, right? It's like, how do you prove that you've become a better person? Like, who you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, hopefully isn't the same person. But like, when you screw up that badly, it's like, no one has to forgive you. Like, yeah, I don't see how he comes back from this. It's going to be incredibly tough.
Yeah, especially when the situation is still being left somewhat vague in terms of what was said. And as far as so more information, I shouldn't say information, but basically the people who have been leaking this or sort of commenting on it, who have said they've seen the chat logs, the ex-Twitch employees and stuff, are saying that Doc was well aware that, because there's the like, well, what if he didn't know she was a minor type thing? Yeah, because it'd be very easy to not give your age on the internet text and pretend that you're somebody who's older. But apparently, according to the people who leaked it, they said no, he was well aware.
Yeah, he was well aware. It's like, bro, Doc, what are you doing? Yeah, super gross.
So yeah, I think especially unless he like came forward with some sort of like information that like, I don't know, refuted some of the things.
There ain't no way. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the end of Doc on the internet. Just kind of wild, end of an era, because he was the biggest thing in streaming for a long time.
I remember all the way back in Machinima days when he was really small and he was just kind of getting started, and he was just this really like out there character. And then he started getting traction on Twitch for the early Battle Royale days. And then he really blew up. And then you're like, oh, he's just now one of the biggest streamers. And you're right. It does feel like the arc has concluded in a just terrible way.
Yeah, it really sucks. And there's like, there's of course other weird, shady streamers out there that people are already kind of semi-aware of. And We have so many people in the gossip news world, especially within gaming gossip and news world, that are just not great characters that are already kind of tainting the landscape of, I guess, the most well-known figureheads in gaming and streaming and stuff. And this one does not bode well for the entire community, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to come of it in the long run, right? As there going to be different policies and whatnot. Did Twitch shut down their Whisper DM thing? Because
I was wondering that too, because I don't think you can whisper anymore.
Yeah,
and that was probably that. I'm sure played a role.
Yeah,
because they don't want to look like a company where people can message like that back and forth.
Right. Like the danger around it, because obviously there's so many young people in gaming and streaming that are highly influential and then look up to these streamers and content creators who really do, despite there not being any sort of contract there, they have an obligation to kind of, be a decent role model for these young people.
Not be a sleazebag.
Yeah. And so, of course, there's this crazy power dynamic with people who just end up being in that situation who want to take advantage of it. I will say I do wonder a little bit about like the whole Whispers DM thing and stuff. I'm like, was Twitch just sort of, the other part of the story that came out about this was that they were concerned about this sort of grooming type behavior online, because I think there were some other activities around this on the platform. And so they put together like a team within Twitch to root it out. And I think that's
Task Force.
Yeah, literally, I think they had a task force name for it, right? And then maybe that's when they started snooping into DMs or something like that.
Well, I was on the assumption that they weren't actually snooping DMs. It was that the victim came forward, and that's where the information came from. That was what I heard. I'm clearly not as like informed as you on the topic, but
well, I mean, no, this information's coming from all tiny little snippets and coming together. And I, last week read like all the information together, but then the information's been added to since then. So it's hard to keep track of it at all. But it's probably one of the biggest content creator stories in quite a while. And hopefully just better people fill the shoes, that space that the doc is leaving, right? Like, I think it's good to have kind of wild entertainers out there and people that, create characters and act and entertain you and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully there's somebody who can, hopefully good people come in, more wholesome people come in and fill those shoes,
You would hope so.
Yeah. Like yourself, go subscribe to Matimio on Twitch right now.
There you go.
He's as wholesome as they come.
Yeah, not like the doc though. I don't act anything like Doc.
Nope. When he DMs minors, it's Star Citizen.
It's Justin Star Citizen
mining people.
God, I still can't believe you opened with that, bro. My heart, I was like, where is he going with this? Just to be clear, not even DMing people in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just like to make you sweat, Matt.
I was like, where is he? What is he doing? What is this man doing?
Come on, best. Shall we move to something
I literally
lighter?
have people messaging me. They're like, who actually believe your intros. Like, there was a guy who came into my stream the other day and he was like, how do you find time for all of your work and streaming? I'm like, I live stream for a living. He's like, oh, don't you work for all these companies? I was like, what do you mean?
Come on,
so
man.
People believe you.
He had to be pulling your leg.
No, he legitimately believed.
He thought you were 100%. Working for Escape from Tarkov guys. Yeah, taking all these sleazy jobs. Oh, that's good, man. That does make me
some
happy.
People actually believe what you say. So watch yourself, Levelcap.
Yeah. Well, shall we move on to something a little more fun? Because that whole story is depressing.
Yeah, it was super depressing.
Super sad, super depressing. Have you seen what COD? I don't even know what COD is anymore. Have you seen the chicken nugget gun ad?
No.
No?
No.
There's this insane Call of Duty chicken nugget cosmetic bundle. I think it's for COD Mobile, but it's pretty insane. It's just like a dude in a chicken suit, using a excuse me, fried chicken assault rifle, and when he shoots people, they explode and turn into small chicken nuggets.
Nice.
Yeah, and just watching it, it's just like, what even is COD anymore?
That's amazing. Let me see if I can find it. Is it a? Okay, I guess I can't see it. I just see I see 6-piece chicken nugget as the first thing that pops up. So.
Oh yeah, just check you can check my Twitter feed. But
your Twitter feed? Okay, that makes it easier.
It's pretty wild. It's
I mean, you got to give the people what they want, right?
I guess so. And I think in that line, COD has kind of become a little bit of a meme. I did a video covering the latest season, and my angle on it and kind of my interest when I saw the season trailer was that they added Gundam skins to Call of Duty. And I was like, well, I'm a huge fan of the original Gundam, which is exactly what they put into the game. And that actually excited me, like legitimately got me excited. I'm like, I want to be the RX-78 and like shoot people and chop them up with my beam saber. Like that's dope. But also, what even is COD?
This weapon skin is fire. Literally, it's on fire, and it's chicken. It's a chicken, extra crispy.
I mean, there was a point at which COD was like trying to be a little more military.
The funny thing is that they do at release. They always try to be like, oh, we're badass, hardcore. Yeah. You know, we got like the super tactical military stuff. And then as the months go by, they're like, okay, that's all we can really do for skins for military. So let's start making chicken outfits because they actually sell too. That's the thing is.
You can be Nicki Minaj in a pink skin tight outfit. Yep. You can be a Gundam. You can be this chicken guy now, shooting chicken skewers, whatever he's shooting at you. It's just gotten full Fortnite to an extent where.
I mean, that's exactly what they want it to be, is to be Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite's a moneymaker, man, and they're partnering. The ability that Fortnite has to partner with any major advertising brand and just suck in all that ad revenue from, like, remember, like they did Thanos with the Infinity War stuff. They did, so they're doing Marvel stuff. They're doing Disney stuff. They're doing all the Lego Fortnite. Like they're pulling in huge amounts of ad money, and COD is all like hardcore military. So they don't really have a lot of options. So now they're trying to, I guess, kind of memify their game, open it up a bit to get those ad dollars and ad partnerships with like all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm on board for the Gundam stuff, but if I was a fan of COD that wanted it to be more military and I saw
but I feel
Gundam
like at this point, like if you
annoyed.
are one of those people, you must know what you're getting into. Like Call of Duty has clearly not been that for years now.
Yeah,
and
you've already
while you can still be
ship.
Disappointed to be like, oh man, I wish it would. I mean, it is what it is. They are making it more of a platform. Like they want just like Fortnite. Like as you said, it's a platform where they can collaborate and they can make more money that way.
Yeah. I actually think the latest COD season isn't bad, to be honest. Like
I haven't. I usually play Call of Duty for a couple of weeks after release, and then I kind of just like, all right, I had my fun, thank you, and I'm out.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's still got that base COD mechanics, and either you like it or you don't, and that's ultimately what is there. Most people that I was playing with were still kind of in their tactical elite operator skins, and I was the idiot in the RX-78 skin. Like, what's up, guys? Is this Gundam?
Hey guys!
This Gundam, bro?
Is your hitbox just massive, or
no? It's all the same. Is Nicki Minaj's hitbox massive, Matt? If you know what I'm talking about.
I mean, it might be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you know? Are you familiar with Nicki Minaj?
I am not. Oh, I mean, I know who Nicki Minaj is. I don't know her. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I live under a rock. I don't live under that much of a rock.
Yeah. So, boy, what have you been playing other than Call of Duty?
Well, another exciting game. Have you heard of FragPunk?
No.
Okay, so it was revealed, I think, at the Xbox Showcase recently. And it is essentially, speaking of Call of Duty as well, it's basically Call of Duty mixed with Valorant. But the twist on it, and I say Call of Duty in the sense that, like, so Valorant, when it originally came out, I was really excited for it because I like Riot and I think that they can do some really interesting things. But I was ultimately disappointed by it because they copied also Counter-Strike's archaic, like really difficult to understand
it's like
weapon mechanics, right?
Meets Overwatch,
Kind of, yeah. It's basically Counter-Strike with abilities, right? And the thing that I was hoping that they were going to do is, while I don't mind it being competitive, I just hate the hipfire mechanics of CS. I just don't like it, right?
It's so old school.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. And I know you can ADS with pretty much every weapon in Valorant, but even then, it like lowers your RPM and you feel like you're at a disadvantage. And so I just could never get into it. So it's essentially Valorant, but with Call of Duty style gameplay mechanics with your actual weapons. So you ADS, you can move around while shooting, and everything is relatively easier to use. And so it's basically just a more casual experience. The twist on it, though, which makes it kind of cool, is that every single round, in between the rounds, you can select cards that will change and modify the match. You can use these shards that you get.
I like that.
So you get these
more
shards
games
by
need
getting
that stuff.
By getting kills. You get these shards you find them on the map too while you're just running around, getting assists, and you can use those to vote and unlock some of these effects. So big heads, like the enemy team will literally have a larger head. You can increase the damage of headshots, long range damage, close range.
Bro, this is full circle. We're coming back to the original Unreal Tournament. That is literally what multiplayer in 2000 and whatever, 2000 maybe.
On top of that, you can also change the map where you can remove cover. Like there's some that will remove the amount of cover on some objectives. You can swap sides. So now you're on defense. You were on defense. Now you're on offense if you wanted to. So if it's more of an offensive focused map, you can do it for one round and switch. You can make it so that it's foggy, and the fog one sucks. I hate it because you can't see anything around you.
Each player get to play a card?
So the team decides at the beginning. You all kind of use your points to decide this card is really good, but it costs 5 points. So we need everyone to invest in it to be able to unlock it for this round.
That's kind of cool.
Coordination,
I like that, man.
Yeah, it's a really neat idea. And I've played it twice. I did 2 streams of it, and it's currently in alpha. But for an alpha, it's very polished. But it was a lot of fun. I was pleasantly surprised.
That is a fantastic concept, honestly. Like you just describing it to me is you get sort of this mini team-based card game in an FPS to a degree where you're like, let's vote on what card to get for our team. And build our strategy around that.
Now, it is random what cards will pop up, so you can't come in with your deck or anything like that. So it's a little bit more, it's each, and that's where I don't know how competitive this game is going to be, because it is like Counter-Strike and everything, where it's going to be competitive with that offense and defense. But then you add these random elements where it's one round, we just have massive heads, or they have their ammo heals them, right? When they hit you, they'll just go back up to full HP. It's going to be interesting to see how it turns out in the end, competitive wise. But just as a fun game to mess around with, if you have always liked the idea of it, but it was way too hardcore, this could be a fun alternative.
Yeah, I think more. It's kind of the perfect solution to the classic FPS is dynamic rounds or round modifiers or something like that to make the game more interesting, as opposed to just playing the exact same thing again and seeing what happens the second time. You're like, oh, kind of same thing. Actually, wasn't that crazy? So yeah, thinking about this to apply to I don't know, Battlefield or something, wouldn't that be cool if a team in Battlefield could be like, well, what if we got 4 attack helicopters this round and gave up our tanks or something?
I don't know how you'd be able to coordinate that with 64 players. But
team voting. You just have them vote on it, right?
I guess, yeah, it's true.
And then you get some crazy strategy, right? So you're voting. That's true. And then maybe the cards are random, so you can't pick 4 attack helis every time. You get an option, and you're like, oh,
this
let's
modifier for this round. Yeah, that could be kind of neat.
Yeah. There's so many things you can do with the classic mode without completely upending what the classic mode is, just making it more interesting, more dynamic. I love that. It's a really cool concept. that type of gameplay doesn't appeal to me as much like what the Valorant style, kind of more, is it 5v5 type
it's
thing?
It's 5v5, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like my 5v5 days are behind me, but I
That's fair.
might check it out.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's cool, man. But
it was neat.
Yeah. I checked out a little bit of Arma Reforger, which is cool. They just got an update, and it adds AI commanding AI. The AI on the map, you can now command them if you hit a high enough rank, and they're actually surprisingly competent, where you can tell them to drive you places or cover you or heal you and stuff. And now it got me thinking. It takes a while to rank up in a multiplayer match, so you can't just be starting off with like armies of AI and controlling them and having them attack people. But it did start making me think, like, yeah, Arma could be kind of cool, or these types of games could be neat if you had more control over all the AI on the map and you got to tell them stuff to do. Because now you're making the dumb AI kind of smart AI to a degree, where the dumb AI might just run into point B or something, and you're like, well, don't do that.
Let's hold this position.
Yeah. And it's kind of a cool concept. I'm really curious to see how it evolves within Arma Reforger, because Reforger, at the end of the day, still takes a lot of the cues from like Arma 3, which is like some of its biggest strengths come from the custom made servers, where people are adding in all their own properties and modifiers and taking the tools that they're providing and turning them into something cooler. So it's making me wonder, like, yeah, could you have a server where everybody just starts off at the highest rank and then is commanding armies of AI to go do stuff for them? You could start creating some like weird MOBA like milsim experiences. I don't know. It was just kind of a neat update for Reforger that feels like it's going to be super powerful down the road in terms of like what people can do on servers.
Yeah, that's neat. It almost sounds, so is it like a top down where you're controlling them, or is it just the like the AI around you? You can like
recruit them. So it spawns AI on the map. And
I was going to say, it almost sounds like a real-time strategy where you then interact with the world, but no.
Well, it's like, so think about Battlefield. Like if you're running in Battlefield,
I got you.
You had the AI around you, you could recruit those guys like into your squad and then just tell them what to do, and they would like heal you and back you up. And I'm like, that's kind of neat, actually.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, because they have to fill out the world in Arma because it's a massive map, right? And so they got to populate it with tons of AI, and the AI fight each other, but before, you would just watch them fight each other and they would shoot at you sometimes, and you just kind of had to play around them. They were sort of these uncontrollable entities on the map. And now you're like, oh, well, I can actually just recruit these guys and
you just have a swarm behind you, the Zerg.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I was like, that'd be kind of cool, just you get to the top of the hill like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and they're like, what's Gandalf doing up there? And then he's like, yeah, and like all the Rohirrim run past him, right? Could do that. Arma style.
There you go.
Everybody gets that reference. Yeah, sweet.
I mean, I do.
I know
if you don't get that reference,
Matt.
Shame on you.
Yeah, no. I can't wait to watch Lord of the Rings with my kids, man. They're nowhere near old enough to appreciate it, but I'm just like, I'm counting down the days, man.
Soon
there'll be a better Lord of the Rings by the time they're old enough.
No, impossible. What do you mean better Lord of the Rings? How dare you?
How dare you?
What Rings of Power?
That new goal. Oh yeah, they're doing a second season for that. I can't believe that didn't get canceled. It was so bad.
It was not great. Beautiful. It was
incredibly pretty.
It was incredibly pretty, but didn't really have much of a story.
Yeah. Also, the choreography for the action was so bad. Like it was really
wasn't great.
Disappointing to watch. You're like, this is what, like $1 billion or whatever you guys spent on it.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah, you couldn't get a guy to train somebody.
And then you see House of Dragon, which also has an incredibly high budget, but man, it is just in another tier.
It's just better. Yeah. It doesn't look like a completely fake world.
Yep. There's sets in House of the Dragon is so good.
Yeah. I was oh man, I want to talk about movie stuff and whatnot because we're on it. Usually I save it towards the end of the podcast, but
okay.
I did see a movie that I'm a huge Miyazaki fan. Like he's made some of my favorite animated films of all time. If you don't know Hayao Miyazaki, he's been around forever making movies like Totoro, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, other huge animes that you've probably seen. Arguably one of the most famous animators in the world.
In the world, right.
In the world.
His studio.
His studio is Studio Ghibli. They came out with a movie called, I think it's The Boy and the Heron. A Boy and the Heron. I think it's The Boy and the Heron. And I've been wanting to watch it. I didn't go to see it in theaters because, you know, I'm an adult with kids and I don't get to do that stuff anymore. But it finally came out on streaming. I watched it and I have no idea what happened in that movie at all.
I heard it got good reviews. Are you saying it was bad?
I think I'm very confused by the user reviews, to be honest, because I think there's so much love for Miyazaki that they'll just be like, it was great. And I'm like, do you know what happened in that movie? Do you have any idea?
So like there was no plot? Like it was just
So it's heavy metaphorical film. So the plot is there's a boy in World War II era Japan, and he loses his mother, I think, in a fire bombing raid.
Jesus.
Yeah, and basically the plot is him dealing with the grief of that, and some other characters sort of dealing with the grief of the loss of his mom, but in such a insane metaphor fantasy world that it becomes really hard to understand.
Hard to tell what's real.
Well, not just, no. A little bit on that front, but just to understand what all the metaphors are. There's so many metaphors and weird rules to the universe and characters. And by the end of the movie, I'm like, I get that this was sort of like a dealing with grief type metaphor, but what was this character? What was that character? What was this whole place? What was that thing over there? What, like nothing in the movie made sense to the point where it just felt like kind of a giant nonsense adventure. And while I think you could probably dive into it and start to make more sense out of every scene and maybe extract some information, to me, like it should be enjoyable first time viewing, you know, and it should be enjoyable enough for you to want to go back and start extracting more information from it on like a second viewing. Like I'm fine with movies being complex and interesting enough to go back and watch again, like Inception or something, right? Like it was fun the first time, and then the second time you notice more things, right? And that's a good formula. But this one, I was just like, I don't want to go back. I don't know what happened the first time. Beautifully animated. Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I heard it got really great reviews. Apparently the voice acting is really good. It has, what's his name? Batman.
Christian Bale. I think Willem Dafoe's in it.
Christian Bale is in it?
Yeah, isn't it Christian Bale?
No, I was talking about the more recent Batman.
Ben Affleck?
Nope. Robert Pattinson.
Oh.
Yeah, he plays the Heron. The Heron, however it's pronounced.
Christian Bale is in it too, though.
Christian Bale is in it too. That's great.
Yeah. I don't.
So apparently it's got a really star-studded cast then.
Oh yeah. I mean, actually, if you go back and look at any of the Miyazaki films, their cast is insane. Every single one of them has like an incredible cast. And it's great. And I mean, from a technical standpoint, the animation is incredible. Like there's a scene in the beginning of the film where I was watching it with my wife and we were both like, whoa, that was really cool. Like I haven't seen something animated in 2D in that way before. And it was some really impressive animation, fantastic voice acting. The world crafting is neat. Like all the stuff that he invented for the movie is so bizarre and out there and cool. But
dude, it has a 97% critic and 88 user review. You're just the odd one out here. Yeah.
So there is some stuff there where people were saying a lot of the metaphors were more Japanese centric and more potentially relevant to cultural changes happening from World War II moving on.
Which would make sense because our culture didn't revolve around those moments. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of stuff in there that I might have missed on that. So perhaps if you're very, very familiar with all the things that the movie is referencing, it might have been more enjoyable. But I don't know, man. Like maybe I'm just a big dum-dum and I didn't get it, and the references were obvious, but I found the movie just so confusing and kind of boring because of that. Like,
yeah,
I just not being able to follow along with what was actually happening in the story or like make sense of anything. I just started to lose interest, which is disappointing because I'm a huge fan of Miyazaki and I'm like, I want to like all his movies, but
yeah, I hear you.
I don't know. Anyway, that's my Boy and the Heron review, non-spoiler review. I'm still such a big fan of Miyazaki that I'm like, oh, you should go see it if you're a huge fan of Miyazaki. But I don't know. I feel like some of those reviews are just like Miyazaki fandom. There's somebody in my neighborhood,
or maybe you're just the odd one out level. Did you ever think of that? Huh? Maybe you're just the weird one.
I think I'm the one that knows the truth, Matt. There's somebody in my neighborhood that has a giant orange van with all the Miyazaki anime characters painted on it, and then Miyazaki himself painted on the outside. I'm like, this is the kind of person who's going to give that movie a 10 out of 10, even if they have no idea what's happening in it. They're going to be like, 10 out of 10, baby. Love Miyazaki. I made a van.
You live in an interesting neighborhood.
The van is out of place. Let me just put it that way. You're just
I figured as much. I feel like that would have been out of place in any neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool van. Give them credit. Support the things that you like. But anyway, that's my Miyazaki movie review.
Switching gears, did you hear that there was a headline that Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its player base?
I did see that article. Actually, that's a fun one.
Yeah, I hate articles like that.
Yeah,
I think they're so disingenuous and like clickbaity and nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh, that co-op horde shooter that hasn't had any like major new content for like how long has it been out? Like since February, I think.
Yeah, I think the devs are really crying into their pillows over that article. Wiping their tears away with all their money and stuff.
I mean, I know content creators out there trying to create content and they want things to talk about, but man, like. It's still doing incredibly well. I think it had like 45,000 concurrent players.
That was like an actual article.
Yeah,
whatever
well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then content creators like us, they're like, oh, it's
yeah,
the game's dying. It's like stop.
Yeah,
it's just clickbait, and it's just so disingenuous.
Yeah, as long as you can play it, as long as any player can play it. And load up, that means nothing to them ultimately, right? Because as long as I can boot up Helldivers, log on and have fun, then it's still more or less the same game that it was.
I really wish that players and media would stop caring so much about Steam charts, because while I do think that it's an interesting stat, I do think that Steam charts matter to some extent. We put way too much of an emphasis on performance of a game over a time period. It's like, oh, look at this game, it's dying. It's like, okay, but can you still play it? And are people still enjoying it? Well, yeah, you can't. Okay, so then,
yeah,
sure, yeah, it sucks that the company maybe isn't doing it as well. But as long as you're having fun, I mean, you could make the argument like, hey, the game is doing badly. That means that the company's not doing the right things, and this is an argument for why they need to do something else. But
I think
it gets really old.
I think this one in particular was used to be a bit more clickbaity. That said, I think it can be introspective to really look at the dynamic cycle of games. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, which is like games can come out, be the biggest thing ever, and then nobody's talking about them 2 to 3 months later.
Right.
But that is just kind of the modern gaming cycle to some degree, unless you create that. Somehow you become the 1 in a million games that becomes that crazy level phenomenon that just lasts forever.
And so people are doing the same thing with Pal World. It's like it had just massive success, and then a month goes by and they're like, huh, see how 80% of people left? It's like, well, yeah, it's a single player.
Yeah.
People had their fun, they moved on. What are you trying to do?
So is there a max rank in Helldivers? Can you essentially max out all your classes and stuff?
I mean, I think technically.
Yeah, but does it feel like there's a point at which your rate of return for rewards and upgrades kind of
you can get all the upgrades.
Off?
You can get every single upgrade, and then you're just playing the game because you're enjoying the game. Yes.
Right. So for any game that's designed around a progression system, there's always going to be a massive fall off because a huge portion of the player base who is enjoying the game, also the progression system feels like it's an indicator of finishing a game to a degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm playing Diablo and I max out my sorceress or whatever, and I feel like I can't really add any more gear to my build to make it any better, then I kind of feel like I beat it. You know, I'm like, well, that's cool. And either I start a new character or I just take a break from Diablo for a while, and that's okay. You know, it doesn't mean Diablo is a bad game. In fact, it means it was a great game. If I actually went through the entire player progression system, that should be the goal of any dev. You know, if somebody plays through your entire game and then puts it down, that should be great. You know, that should be a huge win for you, because if somebody plays your game, makes it through a third of it, and is like, yeah, you know what? I'm not really liking this. Kind of annoyed too that I bought it and now I can't return it. That's not what you want as a dev, right? So I feel like there's very few people that bought Helldivers that are like upset with it or whatever. If they're looking at it from the live service perspective of like, we need to maintain a crazy high player base all the time, I don't think that was ever the goal with Helldivers.
I don't think it was either.
And even 10% of what they launched with, I think, is still beyond what they initially anticipated the game getting in the first place.
So my math is terrible, but Pal World got up to 2 million concurrent players. Ooh. 2 million. It's now peak 24 hour is 128,000. So if my math is good, that means that 95% of the player base has disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
95%. It's still 100,000 people playing concurrently.
Huge amount.
That is insane. Like,
also,
that's
isn't it launching on consoles or something now?
It might be, and they're going to be doing like updates, and people are going to come back to it.
Yeah.
Like, it's their context matters, and I'm just tired of there's so much emphasis on Steam charts. Yes, it matters. Yes, it's an interesting statistic, but it's not indicative of a game's failure or even to some extent its success. It really does matter in the context.
Well, were the people talking about this saying that the game failed or
they were trying to insinuate, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's annoying. It is what it is, but you know what's good is the foundation for Helldivers is so solid that I'm sure.
Well, there's been a little bit of a controversy with that because they've been struggling a little bit with their balances and stuff like that. The community's a little bit more mixed on the balance side of things. They've been adding a lot of patches over a couple of months that have had a lot of bugs and glitches and weapons that are they've nerfed a lot of weapons, but they seem to be righting the ship over the last couple updates. Right. So hopeful that they'll continue.
I guess what I'm trying to say is if they dropped a DLC tomorrow that had like all kinds of new content, you would be on there, right?
100%.
It wouldn't matter what other game was coming out. You'd be like, guys, we're on the new Helldivers DLC.
Absolutely.
So if they've created a fan base that likes their base game that much, they can get them back whenever they want, as long as they're dropping some big content, you know? So it's okay to have a game that gets big when it drops DLC and then dies off after that. You know, it's like, that's fine. If they come back for the DLC each time,
it's a co-op horde shooter.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, articles are silly. But yeah, I'm sure those devs are doing just fine. Yeah.
No, I think they're doing all right. I also beat Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Actually, I beat the DLC for it.
Okay, stop bragging.
I mean, it was no big deal.
It's on your dating profile. It's the first line on your dating
Shadow of the
profile.
Erdtree slain.
Yeah.
It was really good.
It took me about a week. No big deal. Whatever.
Yeah, it was fantastic. If you're someone who likes Elden Ring and you just want more, it doesn't do anything like insanely different from the base game other than make it harder, but it also introduces some of just the best bosses from like the entire franchise. And like the Mesmer the Impaler is hands down probably like my favorite new boss ever in the franchise. He's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Does he mesmerize you and then impale you?
He does mesmerize me with his giant snake. I realized that out of context.
I saw that moment where you're like, I need to pick my next word carefully. And then you went, snake? Good one.
He has snakes that he uses, and they're literally giant snakes.
Yeah. Nice.
Doesn't mesmerize me, but the only real complaints I have is the final boss is probably a little overtuned. The final boss is absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
And if you don't come in with the right loadout, you're gonna struggle a little bit.
Did you take your advice from last week's episode and get all your little DQ
I didn't get all the shadow tree fragments. I got most of them, or the skidoo tree. Apparently skidoo is actually like Old English for shadow or something like that. So it's actually shadow tree fragments, which makes more sense considering it's Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC, but it's spelled skidoo tree. I don't know. Who knows? Skadoosh. But yes, no, I got 19 out of 20, and they also buffed the fragments a little bit. Just a little, like really just the beginning of the game. A lot of people were not going out and exploring, and so they were getting thrashed by those early game bosses. And the devs are like, oh, okay, so we're just going to front load a little bit of the buffs of those fragments at the beginning, so that when you do go fight these bosses early on, you're not getting absolutely trashed. Yeah. And I think it's helped. I think that was a little bit of the bump that people needed to kind of get over that hump, because there was literally mixed reviews at launch because people were complaining not only about performance, but also it was just really challenging.
Well, also if it's not made clear that those fragments are basically the way you get stronger, and you're gonna need that. It
does, but maybe not. It clearly wasn't articulated well enough. So it does tell you though.
So if you can take a straight line from point A to point B, B being the main boss, and all the peripheral stuff is where you get stronger, I could see how a lot of players would get to the boss and be like, wow, I'm just getting slapped silly trying to beat this guy over here. This isn't fun.
It's a little ironic, though, because that's one of the lessons that they try to teach you at the beginning of the very game. The very first boss, Margit, is really challenging. He's even hard once you go out and explore and level up. But I think they designed him specifically so they'd be like, okay, I'm getting dunked on. I should go out and explore more. And when you go do that, you get stronger. And so the fact that that lesson seems to have been lost on a lot of people for the DLC, I think, is a little ironic. I think there's also a little bit of ego that went into it. It's like, oh, I beat the base game. I can do this. I can come in, and then they're just getting slapped. So that, I think, did also play a little bit. But all in all, it was really good.
That's cool. I'm glad that you beat it, and I think the DLC's selling just fine right now.
Yes, we got like 5 million sales.
Controversial reviews, and it also sounds like they kind of balanced out a few of the things. And at this point in time, if you're having trouble in the DLC, you're going to be online in half a second and be like, guide to beating Erd
There
Tree,
are some builds if you want to just if you want to make fights a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because you're not using, when I think of cheese, I think of something where you are manipulating a game mechanic that's not really designed to be that way. But if you just have a really powerful build, you're just overpowered, right? Like you're overtuned, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's why it's a sandbox. If you want to do it, go for it.
Well, and after a while, people are like, hey, did you know when you combine this and that and this together, it's actually super easy and super effective. And you don't get that in the first week or two of the game coming out. People are still just getting slapped around by bosses. And so, there's just a lot more information out there to make the process easier for people. But what I like about it is it reminds me of old school gaming in that old games were hard AF, and you didn't have a strategy guide. There were no strategy guides, baby. You were just like, hey, I heard Tim was really good at this. Let's get Tim over and see if he can beat the final boss or something. It was like, it was a different time, man. It
was neat. Now, I don't think that the DLC is perfect. The people that praise it and have like no criticisms, I'm like, did you experience the same zones that I experienced? There's literally a zone which is really creepy, and I won't like explain why it's creepy, but there's just a bunch of like rats and a couple of dudes that I won't spoil, and it's massive, and you can't be on your mount, and you're like just wandering around with like nothing in it, and you're like, this is interesting atmospherically, but there's nothing here. And that is true for like the southern part. There's like almost nothing around the coastline, and that was a little disappointing. There's also a lot less like side dungeons. The side dungeons are more handcrafted, which is nice. They don't just feel like cookie cutter, so that's great, but there's just not a lot. So I love the DLC, but I do feel like they have like this giant skeleton of this beautiful landscape, just massive. You're like, holy cow, I can't wait to explore it. And then you explore it and you're like, there's nothing here though.
Oh, they kind of were like airbrushing in the areas to a degree.
Yeah.
Like, here's a desert. Isn't that cool? And you're like, yeah, but it's a desert. It's just a desert.
It's a beautiful. There's no deserts. There's absolutely. You're
swamps, right?
You're running. Yeah, there were definitely a lot of swamps. So many poison swamps. You're running through these beautiful red flowers and blue flowers, and there's great sight lines out in the distance. And then you see just a couple of the same mobs that you've seen the entire time. And then maybe you'll stumble across like a little side boss. And then that's it for like the entire zone. And you're like, am I missing something? It's like, no, you're not actually missing anything. It's just, I felt like they made it a little bit too big. There's not enough meat on some of those bones in certain areas. But small critique in the grand scheme of an just incredible DLC.
It was an artistic choice, Matt, to make you contemplate the vast emptiness of life
of my soul,
of your soul. Yeah, I honestly, with it's another. Was his Hideo? Who's the game director on that one?
Miyazaki.
Yeah, another Miyazaki is what I want to say. He says stuff about game development stuff that also feels very like kind of philosophical to a degree. So it would be interesting to see if there was some reason for that. But yeah, at the end of the day, when it comes down, when something's a video game, it should be generally fun and entertaining to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see? I read. Speaking of funny clickbaity articles, I read one that was talking about how Steam users have $19 billion worth of unplayed games in their account. It was an extrapolation. Yeah, for sure. I was thinking about that and I was like, oh yeah. And I was looking down my Steam list and I was like, yeah, there's a couple games in here that I don't even think I loaded up once. Those Steam summer sales though, man, how much do you think those are to blame for just loading up
I heard
on
that
games?
it was their MSRP, so it's not really, it wasn't really 100% accurate. So if the game is normally $60, but they got it on sale for $10, like that $50 is being accounted for in that article when they really only spent 10. So
interesting.
That's what I heard. I didn't dig into it though.
Okay, so we could say kind of approximations, loose numbers, figures, and whatnot. Yeah, but well, I mean, I was just talking to my buddy who, we just had a Steam summer sale. Is it still going? I don't know.
It's going on right now. Yeah,
it's going on right now. And he sent me a list of like 7 games he just bought, and I'm like, what are the odds that you're
gonna play all of them?
Yeah, you're gonna play half of those games.
Yeah,
some of them are like Riven, right? Mist Riven. Remember that one?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I never played it when I was younger because I was too stupid.
Right. And I like the idea of going back and playing the Riven remaster. I think it's pretty good, actually. But I know I'm not going to. Right? I'm like, this is probably a really good game.
The idea of it's nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of games where I'm like, I really love the idea of playing this. I'm going to get into that. I bought a spaceship game, X4, during the sale. And I haven't played it yet, but I'm like, I need to play it. I'm going to play it, but it's a really deep, complex game. And so if there's a game like that, I'm always like, I need
really have
to
sit down.
A good, like,
it's like
4 hours,
I gotta spend
hours.
some time with this. I hear you.
So again, I like the idea of it. Will I play it? Hopefully I'll spend my money, or I'll use my money. I've spent the money, get my money's worth is what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You remember during COVID-ish times and
it was a haze.
Yeah, it was a haze. But you remember there was like a period of about a year when nobody could get an Xbox or a PlayStation 5 or a Nintendo. Remember when the Switch first came out, the scalping was insane. People were just buying out all the Switches and then reselling them online for like double, triple.
Yep. Of course I do.
Yeah, it's super cool that happens with like every major console release.
Did I tell you how I got my PlayStation 5?
Yeah, you said like a fan sold it to you or something,
No,
right?
No. So I tried to buy it from Kohl's, and I'm actually wearing the pants right now from Kohl's.
Uh-huh.
So I put in my order.
Yeah.
And Kohl's is like a clothing store.
Yeah,
so I was
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right,
you bought
That's
it from
why I was
Kohl's.
so confused. So they had a bunch. They apparently had some, but the order went through, and because the order went through, they then the next day said, "We apologize. There was a problem with our system. We didn't have as many as we claimed that we did." And your order cannot be fulfilled. So they gave me $200 worth of Kohl bucks. So I got my money back. They gave me $200 free, and I just spent that to buy clothes. So I'm literally wearing the pants right now.
Nice.
And then the next week, I was able to buy a PlayStation from Walmart, and I got a PlayStation. So I basically just got free money.
Nice, Matt. You got some Kohl pants over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so continue on. I just want to tell my little story.
No, that is funny. Yeah, so the article I read about this whole basically revolving around scarcity of new consoles is Nintendo. We know the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming at some point. And the article was talking about how Nintendo said basically they're going to make sure that there are so many consoles available that scalpers will not be able to buy them all. So if you want a console, you'll be able to get it at launch at retail from whatever distributor.
That's some confidence there.
Yeah. So I think they're just basically going to try and start production now-ish, build up a huge stockpile so that there's just no potential shortage. And I'm like, that's great. Good on Nintendo for doing that, because they don't really have to a degree. Like,
nope.
Yeah.
Because they're still selling their copies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it does kind of reflect a little bit bad on the companies, because then there's a little bit of bitter resentment. It's like, oh man, I would play this and I'd buy this, but I can't because everything's being scalped. So some people might look down on the company for like not trying to address that, right?
Yeah, it's really
so even
hard
though
to
it's not
deal
their
with.
problem. Yeah.
You know, it would be very funny, and I secretly hope it happens, but who knows if the scalpers might wise up to this. If the scalpers really do try and buy like millions of dollars worth of consoles, thinking that they'll be able to mark them up and resell them, and then everybody just gets all of their consoles at retail price from Nintendo or the stores instead, and then the scalpers are just left with years and years worth of Switches that they have to try and sell off, and like that would make me happy. You know, the people who screwed it up for everybody all of a sudden having to spend tons of time and money just to make their base investment back.
Yep.
That would make me happy. But good on Nintendo for doing that. Hopefully it turns out that way and scalpers don't screw it up, because obviously Switch 2 is going to be a massive launch, you know.
What do you think it's going to be? Do you think it's just going to be an upgrade of the Switch? Do you think it's going to be
I kind of hope it is
the next advancement of handheld technology? Like, what are they going to do?
No, I really hope they lock into the Switch. Like, I think the design is extremely solid. I think Nintendo's seeing success on a level that they probably, I think, is higher than their previous consoles by a significant margin.
Probably.
It can be your TV console, it can be your handheld console, making that just better on all fronts, which would be hardware ergonomics. The ergonomics of the Switch sucks ass, by the way. Like,
yeah, it's terrible.
Everyone who wants to play that buys like a little controller add-on for it, or like a little grip add-on for it, so your hands don't cramp up. But I mean, there's tons of room for improvement with the Switch. So as long as they just take that great formula and just make it better, which it seems like they've kind of been doing with the Switch 1, with the like Switch Lite and stuff like that. They've been taking the same formula and just making it better. Yeah, I think just repeating the same thing is going to be a win for them, because I don't know.
And maybe it'll have the same power as a PlayStation 4.
It's going to be a VR thing. You can just stick it to your face. And
there you go.
I'm in the Switch, bro.
I'm curious to see how powerful it'll be. That's what I'm little worried about.
There's no way it can be as powerful as a giant box, right? It's just a size problem. That said, mobile hardware is getting pretty good. The Steam Deck's pretty powerful. It can run a lot of games, and also there's been a lot of articles lately about how Unreal Engine 5 games have trouble on the Steam Deck because they're kind of more power hungry, if not optimized right, and then the Steam Deck is like struggling to run them all. But I also think it's a little bit of new software tech that needs to sort of figure out ways to optimize for mobile a bit better. It's not so much that it can't, it's just that they're still learning how to optimize it and figure out the right techniques. So I think, matching, if not exceeding the Steam Deck would future-proof the Switch for a bit, but it does kind of suck that the Switch can't throw really insane-looking Unreal Engine 5 graphics at us at like 90 FPS or something. Or even 60 probably, like whatever the next Switch is going to be. It probably won't be for that, but Nintendo's just always been reliant on fantastic game design, and it just kind of has to cater more towards the cartoony visual style because they just can't do the full realism stuff if you wanted to go that route. But it does suck when there's like a really good looking cool new game coming out and it's like, well, I don't want to play that on the Switch. That's going to suck on the Switch. I'm going to play it on the Xbox or PC or whatever.
Yeah.
Are you going to get a Switch too?
I might. I probably will. I mean, it really depends on the games, and I very rarely use my Switch right now because I'm not really mobile. Yeah. I'm always just in this room and on this PC, so there's really not a ton of incentive for me to pick one up. But if they come out with some banging games and it's for a decent price, then yeah, I'll probably pick it up.
Do they try and take some of your money when you stream a Nintendo game?
No, I haven't had that problem.
Okay. I mean, on YouTube,
but I very rarely ever stream.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the thing on YouTube, I know, but I don't know what it was like. Yeah, I don't think it's.
I'm not sure if they're still doing it.
Twitch people. Could be wrong.
Yeah. Did I tell you I'm buying a virtual pinball machine?
Yeah, you talked about that the other day.
Yeah, I placed my order.
Oh, nice.
It's got a 4070 in it, Matt.
Your pinball machine's going to have a better graphics card than I do?
Yeah. My pinball machine is going to be a more powerful computer than your gaming PC. It's the Primo.
Ridiculous.
It's the Primo machine.
That's ridiculous.
I'm so excited for it. I'm not getting it till like September. It takes them like forever to make.
Yeah, I imagine it would take a while.
I'm very excited for it. And when I saw like the specs on the machine, I was like, holy, because they're running the table on a 49-inch screen that's got 120 hertz refresh rate. And so they want it to always be at 120 FPS.
Right.
No
you
matter
would always
what.
Want it to be, because then if it like lags or frame rate dips, like that's going to be terrible.
Yeah. So it's got to be a solid 120 with any of the visual stuff maxed out. And
right.
VPin stuff is getting to a point where they're like, yeah, we're just simulating all realistic shadows and physics all the time. So they can just crank up the demands for pinball as far as they need it to go. But this should hopefully future-proof it for a while.
You would hope so.
I'm going to open it up and just stick a 4090 in there just to be like, Matt, check out my VPin machine, bro.
It's a better gaming PC than your PC. It's just for pinball, baby.
It's just pinball.
The ultimate flex.
Yeah. What's the display resolution going to be? Says Atif. 4K. Yeah. So 4K display res. And then it's got 3 monitors, which is awesome. So it's like the main table is a monitor. Then the back display is a monitor. And then there's like a little topper display on top of that. And then it's got tons of mechanical moving parts inside. So like motors and knockers and stuff. So that when you actually hit the flippers, you feel the table like slam, like you would from a real table. So yeah, cool. It's got tons of stuff in it. I'm very, very excited for it. Got all the speaker systems, subwoofers.
How do they keep it so that if it like because it's jostling, right? Because it's Well, so then does that affect the parts inside, like the PC parts from like jostling too?
I don't think so. I mean, it's like you can knock around. There's tons of most PC parts are solid state now, aside from fans. So as long as you have a jostle-proof fan, that's about all you got to worry about.
That's true. You know what I mean, though, yeah.
Yeah, but also
I'm not like rocking my PC back and forth all the time.
Yeah, but there's also so much equipment in this world that has fans in it, like a car that is constantly jostling and bumping around. True. They know how to make hardware that can survive jostling.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And by hardware, I mean basically a fan at this point, because that's the only real moving part, other than the motors and actuators that they put inside of the pinball machine. But it looks cool. It's got LEDs. It's apparently you can hook up a VR thing to it as well if you want to do it in VR. I don't know how that works. I'm pumped for it, man. It's going to be one of the like craziest gaming purchases I've ever made. But
right on, dude.
I'll be doing
sounds
pinball,
like fun,
baby. Yeah. I'm already looking at all the virtual pinball tables. They have a Cowboy Bebop one that I'm excited about.
Nice.
Well, I streamed the shake tests. I mean, sure, I've seen videos on it. Like, it's got really sensitive, I don't know what you call accelerometers inside of it, or if you, I think that actually is what they're called. But if you bang it, like it'll jostle the ball inside, right?
Accelerometer.
So like,
that's neat. So it just basically does make it feel like it's a physical object.
Yeah, they want you to be able to do all the exact same things in virtual pinball as you could do in a real pinball machine. So there's a lot of techniques for nudging the ball when it's about to go down one of the side channels to get it back in that are generally considered like fair play, because the pinball machines are built with a little sensor inside where you can knock them to a certain degree, but as soon as you knock it too hard, it'll reset your game. So that's how it's actually built, where it's like, yeah, you can knock it and nudge it, but if you knock it and nudge it too hard,
you can't just be like, honk.
Yeah, you can't just be like, I want it to go back up to the top, then the machine turns off. So right. I think this is built with the same type of thing in it.
Gotcha.
It's dope.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm excited, dude. We'll be doing some pinball streams.
Nice. I'll have to tune in for it. I don't have any cool things like that lined up. I bought some new books. That's pretty exciting, right?
Your first edition
The Will of the Many. That was a new book. I hear it's fantastic, so I'll be reading that soon. And I picked up another book, but I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. So yeah, exciting life here over at my Matimio's dwelling. Yes.
Glad to hear it. You know what is funny is my wife was looking for some new books to get into because she's just been burning through books left, right, and center. And
nice.
Yeah, she started Red Rising, so she's getting into that now. I'm like, oh boy, all right, we'll see what you think of it. I'm kind of curious for the female perspective on it, because a lot of the fantasy she gets recommended is a little more heavily written in the like romance world.
Yeah, you said that there was that
focus on it, but that is an undertone of a lot of fantasy that seems to be marketed towards women. Although, yeah, so we'll see what she thinks about Red Rising, which since it's such a hardcore, but like there is relationships in it, but it's certainly not a focus of the book. It's like, yes, I like this chick. Now let's go kill people for the next 100 pages.
It is a war series. It's sci-fi, but it's space sci-fi combat.
Yeah. I'm slowly getting into the fourth book.
Okay.
It's different. Slowly. Yeah, I tried to get into it a couple times and then had to reread the chapters because I was just not quite hooked on it yet. My mind wasn't ready to get back into ultimately what is somewhat torturous, torturous experience.
More so, I would argue, for the sequel too. And it also has different perspectives this time. So you have to learn the new characters and understand where they're coming from and their backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's worth it in the end though.
Yeah. Oh man, you missed some good racing this weekend. Formula One was pretty hot. I also went to Formula E in person with my son.
Oh, how'd that go? Was it super loud?
No, it was like the future of racing, dude. They sound like spaceships. They just go.
That's pretty cool.
When there's like a whole pack of 20 of them together, it really sounds cool. And you're just like, they're all braking at the same time and then just kind of disappear in a second because they go from like 0 to 60 in 1.7.
Right. It's insane.
Yeah. Matthew's all excited about the F1 talk. We'll save the F1 spiel for post podcast. In fact, I should mention, if you want to support the podcast, you can check us out on Patreon, where you get to watch the podcast live, which is why when we say Atif and Matthew in chat, it's because they're watching us live right now and commenting. We also do a post podcast show where we talk about other stuff, and that is for Patreon members. So check out our description below for a way to support the podcast more. We appreciate you very much. And I will say one last thing I wanted to talk about before the show ends. Are you a fan of The Bear? I feel like you watched The Bear.
I haven't seen The Bear. I've heard really good things though.
First 2 seasons, amazing. The third season came out and it is so well acted. Like the acting in that show and the cast is unbelievable. Like everybody's fantastic. But the first 3 episodes, just like they almost put me into like a panic like state. They are so stressful. The whole show's about basically these broken people who are in the cooking industry who are just dealing with grief and trauma. Yeah. And the third season is just like, let's double down, and they just, it's unrelenting. And like, I need it. We binged 3 episodes, and then I was like, I need to take a break from this one. Like, we can come back to it later, but it's too much. Like, I need some relief from like the stress of it. But yeah, that is kind of the fun thing about a cooking show as well. It's like kitchen life is super stressful, orders coming in, things going wrong, all that. You know, it's designed to be a stress-inducing environment, but still highly recommend seasons 1 and 2. I thought you were watching it, so I brought it up. I was going to see what you thought of season 3.
I do need to get into it though, because everyone says it's 10 out of 10.
Yeah. 10 out of 10. And then I noticed the ratings on season 3 are like 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, where the first 2 seasons are like 99, 98. I'm like, okay, I see it. Some people are like, all right, man, just relax.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. My heart can't take it. Well, should we wrap up the pod there?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want to support us, we got our Patreon down below. We appreciate you all very much. And Matt's going to leave you with some extremely useful advice.
So life can be hard, and failure is a big part of life. And you need to, if you are failing, that's good, because that means that you're learning. But if things are getting really hard, I recommend picking up the deflecting hard tier. That can make things a little bit more easy to deflect certain, challenges that you're encountering. If that isn't enough, maybe pick up the Hallig Tree Great Shield for some added defense, or even maybe invest in some Ashes of War that give you a little bit more range. These are all really good life tips and advice.
Mm-hmm. I like it, Matt. We're kind of like, it's like game guide end of the show. Tips here. I like it. It's a good theme. Good theme.
Yeah.
Learn from your mistakes, right? That's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know? If you keep failing, analyze the process, figure out what you need to change, move forward.
The definition of insanity is, expecting a different result when you keep doing the same thing.
Who defined that, to be honest? Like, where
I have no idea. It just comes from that Far Cry game. That's all I know.
Yeah. Did they even have a dictionary when they wrote that? Like, is some weird dictionary? Well, yeah,
it wasn't. Far Cry 3 wasn't that long ago.
No, I'm just saying, like, did the guy who wrote that line even have a dictionary?
Oh, I hear you.
The definition is this. Yeah, okay. I'm going to look it up. That's for next podcast, though. Titillating information in the next one.
Yeah.
Coming up. Thank you guys all so much for watching. See you next time. Peace out.
Take care.